Merry Christmas, everybody. We've got breaking news on Christmas morning. Jimmy Butler reportedly wants out of Miami. Let's talk about what this means and why it may not have the desired effect that Butler wants. I'm Trevor Lane. This is the Basketball Bulletin. Make sure you subscribe right here to the channel. We're going to bring you everything around the NBA, regardless of the time or day. All right, let's get into it. Here is Shams Charania breaking the news. Six-time NBA All-Star Jimmy Butler prefers a trade out of Miami ahead of the February 6th trade deadline. Now, there have been talks of Jimmy Butler potentially being moved. We've been talking about it since the summer, really, when Butler and the Miami Heat did not come to terms on a contract extension. And Pat Riley threw some shade at Jimmy Butler and his lack of availability in recent years. Look, there's no question that Jimmy Butler is an incredible player. He is certainly someone that you want on your side come playoff time, but the availability as well as his age have become a concern. Jimmy Butler, 35 years old. He'll be 36 by the start of next season. And when you look at what he's done over the last few years, availability-wise, well, it's not great. 60 games played last season, 64 the season before that. He misses a number of games, 57, 52, 58. He's missing games every single year, a significant amount of games every year. And as he's getting older, the belief is that that issue is only going to continue or potentially get worse. So that's where we're at now. But Jimmy Butler could not come to terms on an extension with the Miami Heat. There were rumblings at the time that Jimmy was going to push to get out of Miami if he couldn't get an extension from them. And now Shams saying he does indeed want out. The Heat are also willing to listen to trade offers for him, but Jimmy only wants to go to a contender. Specifically, the teams that he's interested in include the Phoenix Suns, Golden State Warriors, Dallas Mavericks, and Houston Rockets. Now, each of those teams has varying degrees of ability to actually land Jimmy Butler. For example, the Phoenix Suns, they would almost certainly have to trade Bradley Beal in a deal to get Jimmy Butler, assuming they don't want to part with Kevin Durant or Devin Booker. And the Miami Heat are reportedly not interested in taking on Bradley Beal's contract, nor should they be, not with that no trade clause that's attached to it, and Beal's play of late, not a surprise there. So Phoenix getting into the mix for Jimmy Butler is difficult, especially because they're a tier 2 apron team and they can't aggregate salaries in a trade. So it becomes very complicated for some of these landing spots. Some of the other ones, like the Warriors, who have to be the favorites to land him, they can stack up a few players. They've got pieces that I think would be of interest to Miami, and we'll take a look at that in just a moment. But where could Jimmy actually wind up? What would a deal really look like? And why leverage may not be where Jimmy Butler thinks it is? Let's get to that in just a moment. First, Christmas shout out to our sponsor over at Prize Picks. They do a fantastic job. And what I love, look at it right there on the screen, the free square. Nikola Jokic, 0.5 points. Well, we know we're going to hit on that one. Boom. We'll get that. Then we'll go take a look here. LeBron James, 23 points, taking on Steph Curry, the Golden State Warriors. You know LeBron is going to deliver on Christmas Day. I'm going to hit more on that. This is all you have to do. Pick a few players, more or less than their projections, and off you go. Let's see what else we've got here. Let's take a quick peek. Buddy Hield. You know what? The Lakers, they got lit up last time that they took on the Detroit Pistons. Their defense was struggling. Have to imagine Buddy Hield is going to have the ability to put up some points off the bench. It's one of the big advantages of the Warriors in that matchup. So let's go there. Buddy Hield, more than 5.5 points as well. So we'll go with Buddy. Now, Goblins. This is an easier to win play. It's the way it works on Prize Picks. Again, 5.5 points, pretty nice line, I think, for Buddy Hield, but they come with a lower payout. But you know what? I'll take it. 5.5 points on Buddy Hield. Let's go. If you guys want to play Prize Picks, use our link in the description down below, and make sure you use our code Bulletin. That way they know that you came from us. Great way to support us. Great way to support the channel here. And you get a nice little bonus from it. If you go to prizepicks.com and you use the code Bulletin, you get a guaranteed $50 once you play $5 in lineups. That's right, a guaranteed $50 once you play $5 in lineups. So go check out Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy. All right, so Jimmy Butler, where can he actually land, and why his trade demand here? Well, he has not officially demanded a trade. That's part of the news here, that he has not officially demanded a trade, but he would prefer to be moved. And you probably won't hear a public trade demand from Jimmy Butler because that would lead to fines from the NBA. But Jimmy's contract, $49 million this season. That's a lot of money to stack up to match a salary there. But he also has a player option for $52.4 million. Now, Jimmy has made it clear that he plans to opt out of that player option. However, he kind of has to. He kind of has to say that he's opting out, because if he doesn't, if he says he's opting in, that gives the Miami Heat another year of control. So the potential is there for the Miami Heat to just call Jimmy's bluff and say, well, we don't think you're actually going to opt out of $52.4 million. We think you're going to be under contract for another year, so we don't have to move you right now. Now, again, Jimmy's going to want to tell everybody that he is going to opt out, which creates a couple of challenges, actually, because it means that whoever trades for Jimmy Butler, they could potentially only have him for half a year, whatever is remaining of the season when they trade for him, unless they're willing to come to terms on a new deal with him. So if you're going to trade for Jimmy, you have to be willing to not only pay Jimmy Butler what's on his contract right now, but also agree to a deal with him for the future, because nobody's going to give up the kind of assets that Miami is going to want, and we'll talk about that in a minute, in order to get Jimmy Butler and have him just walk away in free agency a few months later. It's similar to the Brandon Ingram situation in that way, where teams like Brandon Ingram, but teams aren't willing to give up stuff to get Brandon Ingram, plus give him the next contract that he wants. We could see a similar situation with Jimmy Butler. And then on top of that, in free agency right now, this coming summer, there's just not very many teams with cap space. In fact, we're talking about essentially the Nets and the Wizards. And neither of those teams have interest in Jimmy Butler, nor should they. Both of them are in rebuilds. A 35-year-old Jimmy Butler makes no sense for them. So Miami can effectively call Jimmy's bluff here, because they know that no matter what, Jimmy needs Miami's help. Even if the Miami Heat say, you know what, we're done with you too. We're done, and we want to see you go somewhere else. And I'm not saying they're there, because they're not. But even if it did hit that point, Jimmy still needs Miami's help to go somewhere else. Unless he wants to go take a mid-level exception from somebody or something like that, he only wants to go to contending teams, which would mean it would need to happen via a sign and trade this coming summer if he is indeed going to hit free agency and not pick up that player option. So typically in a situation like this, where a player can become a free agent, the player has a lot of control over where they land and what the return is. They can diminish their own market value considerably by just saying, well, no, I am only going to sign with teams X, Y, and Z in free agency, and therefore those teams can offer a limited amount. They can offer less because the market is so small. Jimmy can restrict the market. He could still do that. He could still, if, I don't know, say the Orlando Magic trade for Jimmy and Jimmy doesn't want to be there, he could say, no, I won't re-sign with this team. And all he has to do is do that, and it should immediately remove most of the offer that the Magic or whoever, whatever hypothetical team we want to throw in, would give. Because again, no team wants to give significant assets for half of a season of Jimmy Butler. Nobody's going to want to do that. So Jimmy can control his destination to a degree, but the threat that he's going to leave Miami and leave them without any compensation is also very, very slim. It's a very weak threat from Jimmy. So Miami doesn't have to go into trade negotiations feeling like they must sell, because they are still in the driver's seat. They have to get what they want. Otherwise, they don't trade him. And Jimmy doesn't really have a path to leave if they don't follow his wishes. So that's going to be the interesting dynamic in this situation. Jimmy needs the Miami Heat. The Miami Heat need Jimmy Butler. Whether it is with Jimmy staying in Miami or not is another story. But Miami needs Jimmy to be willing to go to a location that will give back a significant return for him. And Jimmy needs Miami to get him to that location. Unless he suddenly decides he wants to play for a mid-level exception, which would be a big surprise. Maybe that's the nuclear option for Jimmy Butler if he simply can't get the Miami Heat to play ball and send him where he wants to go. But he can direct his landing space to a degree, but he needs to get the help of the Miami Heat in order to get the kind of contract that he wants. Whether he stays with Miami or not, to get his next contract, he needs Miami, because there are no options for him to walk to in free agency. So that's going to be the interesting dynamic here. I still think the Golden State Warriors make the most sense for Jimmy Butler. If I am Miami and Golden State is the trade partner here, I am asking, yes, Andrew Wiggins' salary is probably going to have to be in the mix there, $26.2 million, but I'm also asking for Jonathan Kuminga as the key piece to this trade. We'll see if the Warriors will give him up or not. Really talented young player, but $7.6 million on the books. And then you've got some expiring salary in guys like Kevon Looney. They've already moved on from D'Anthony Melton, but Dennis Schroeder could be repackaged in a trade just ahead of the deadline. He could be sent out and reaggregated in a deal. You've got $13 million expiring salary there for him. You have Gary Payton II's expiring. So I think the Warriors could put together a compelling offer of young talent if they're willing to part with Kuminga. You've got some matching salary help with Andrew Wiggins, so he's got multiple years still under contract. And then you've got expirings in Dennis Schroeder, Gary Payton II. You'll look at Kevon Looney. They've got some expiring contracts that could stack up as well, in addition to a need for Jimmy Butler. They need to go win right now with Steph Curry and Draymond Green. So to me, Golden State, of the teams that are listed, still make the most sense for Jimmy Butler as on both sides of things. As a team Jimmy would want to go to, and a team that would want Jimmy. Dallas has some complications getting him. The Houston Rockets have been telling everybody who will listen they do not want to break up their young core, so they would seem to be removing themselves. If we're buying what they're saying, they'd be removing themselves from this. The Phoenix Suns can't do it without Bradley Beal. So it has to be Golden State based on what this list is right now. Golden State should wind up being that team. But we'll see if they can ultimately get the deal done or not. But this is a big step. Jimmy actually wanting out, making it clear that he wants to leave the Miami Heat by the February 6th trade deadline means it's now that much more likely that we could get some fireworks by deadline day, seeing Jimmy Butler in the Miami Heat part ways. Again, everybody, have a very Merry Christmas. Hope you enjoy the fantastic NBA games that we've got on the slate today. Want to say thank you to all of you for joining us on this basketball journey, for being part of this channel, and appreciate all of you who have subscribed. Till next time, everybody. See ya and stay safe.